I never thought I'd inherit anything worth mentioning. My family had no castles in Europe, no mansions on a hill, just old debts and fading photographs. So when a letter arrived from a lawyer's office I didn't recognize, sealed with wax, I almost threw it away. Inside was a deed, not to a house, not to land, but to a train station. A station with no listed address, no entry on municipal records, no trace on any map I could find. The lawyer's note was brief: "This property belonged to your great-uncle. You are the last surviving heir. Collect the keys at your own risk." I laughed at first, until I held the keys. They were heavy, iron, and cold, as if they'd been buried in the ground for a century. And when I searched the coordinates scribbled in the margins, all I found was a blank spot. No roads, no town, just forest. That's when I realized, some places vanish from maps for a reason. Before we dive deeper, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Here, I share true stories and haunted testimonies that blur the line between memory and nightmare. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. I arrived at the coordinates just after sunset, guided only by my car's dim headlights and the vague directions from the lawyer's assistant. The road was nothing more than a dirt path splitting through dense pine trees, roots clawing up from the soil like warning fingers. My GPS died half an hour earlier, the screen froze on static lines before going black. When I finally saw the outline, my chest tightened. The train station stood alone, like a relic torn from another century. Tall, arched windows were crusted with grime. A rusted clock, its hands frozen at 3:17, loomed above the entrance. No signpost, no tracks in sight. It was as if the forest had swallowed the railway whole, leaving the building stranded in time. The deed and keys felt heavier in my pocket as I stepped out. The air was colder here, unnaturally still, as though the trees were holding their breath. I noticed the faint sound of dripping water, even though there were no pipes, no rain. The doors groaned when I pushed them open. Inside, darkness swallowed everything. My flashlight beam revealed cracked tiles, benches thick with dust, and timetables still hanging on the wall. The names of the destinations were smudged, unreadable. Except for one. Platform 0. There was no Platform 0 on any station I'd ever known. Yet there it was, etched in faded white paint, an arrow pointing deeper into the gloom. I should have left. But curiosity, sharp and reckless, pulled me forward. That's when I heard it. A faint chime, like the bell of an arriving train, echoing from the tracks that shouldn't exist. The sound was faint, almost delicate, like the crystal ring of a dinner bell echoing across an empty hall. My first thought was that it had to be in my head, the kind of noise you imagine when silence gets too heavy. But it grew louder, steady, as though coming closer. I froze. The flashlight trembled in my hand, its beam quivering across the peeling walls. There were no tracks, no trains, no schedules that had run here in decades, maybe a century. And yet, the bell tolled again, 3 sharp notes that sent a tremor down my spine. I forced myself forward, each step crunching over broken glass and debris. The arrow for Platform 0 pulled me deeper, leading down a corridor that seemed longer than the outside of the building could allow. My breathing was the only sound, until I passed a ticket booth. The glass was shattered, the counter layered in dust, but the turnstile still stood. And perched on top of the counter was something that stopped me cold. A ticket. Not yellowed or torn like the paper around it. Fresh. Crisp. The ink looked wet. I picked it up with a shaking hand. Across the center, in perfect block letters, was my name. The date? Tonight. The departure time? 3:17 a.m., the same as the frozen clock outside. I dropped it. It fluttered silently to the floor, as if gravity hesitated to claim it. A whisper slid through the corridor then, too soft to belong to anyone solid. It carried no breath, no body, only shape. Boarding soon. I spun, light darting across shadows. The hall was empty. But the whisper left a weight behind, pressing down on my chest, urging me to move forward. At the end of the corridor, the wall had collapsed in parts, revealing stairs that descended into darkness. A sign hung crookedly above them, chains squeaking in some invisible draft. Platform 0. The chime rang again. I gripped the railing, my palms slick with sweat, and started down. The steps groaned, wood soft from rot. Each one felt like it might give way beneath me, but the sound of the phantom bell left no room for retreat. Halfway down, my flashlight sputtered. For an instant, the darkness swelled so thick I couldn't see my own hands. When the beam returned, I wished it hadn't. The walls were no longer brick. They were lined with something else. Old photographs, hundreds of them, nailed in crooked rows. Faces stared back, passengers caught mid-smile, mid-wave, mid-laugh. But their eyes were smudged out, black voids that followed me as I passed. I hurried, heart in my throat, refusing to stop until the stairwell emptied onto a wide, open platform. And there, gleaming under a light that had no source, stood the outline of a train. Its doors were open, spilling pale light across the platform. And though the station was deserted, I heard footsteps boarding ahead of me, footsteps that weren't mine. The platform stretched wider than any space could possibly fit beneath that small station, an underground cavern of tiled floor and arched ceiling that swallowed my footsteps and returned them hollow. The train itself sat impossibly clean amid the decay, a string of black carriages with polished brass trim, each window fogged from within as if something warm breathed on the other side of the glass. The footsteps ahead of me were unhurried. Confident. I lifted my light and saw no one, only the ripple of condensation on a window as if something had just leaned close to look out. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Gas leak hallucinations. A prank. A film set left to rot. All the reasonable theories felt like paper shields against a tide. A metal placard hung beside the first open door, black line, Platform 0. Underneath, in a neat serif, no returns. I swallowed hard and peered into the carriage. The air inside was cooler, laced with the faint scent of coal smoke and rain on steel. Seats of cracked leather lined either side, their brass nubs polished from countless hands that couldn't possibly belong to this century. Luggage racks held hatboxes and suitcases covered in travel stickers for places that made my mind itch, names I recognized spelled wrong, cities that didn't exist anymore, one or two I'd never heard at all. The bell chimed, 3 notes, closer now, resonant enough to stir the dust at my feet. Hello. My voice sounded small. Is anyone? A woman's voice answered from deeper in the carriage. You're late. The words seemed to come from everywhere at once, like a song over a station PA. I edged forward, gripping the pole by the door. Who are you? A shape glided into view 2 rows ahead. Not a full person, more like a silhouette cut from smoke. The outline of a hat, a coat, a profile that wavered as if I were looking through heat. The figure turned, and for a heartbeat it had a face, ordinary, tired, faintly amused. Then the features smudged, streaking sideways like wet ink. Tickets, please, it said, in a voice that didn't fit the mouth. I don't have, I began, then remembered the ticket with my name. I'd dropped it upstairs. The thought slammed into me like a door. It's not with me. No one boards without a ticket. The figure tilted its head. Except those already expected. The carriage lights flickered. Beyond the windows, I could have sworn I saw motion, a shadow moving along the platform outside the train, matching my position, as if pacing me from the other side of the glass. My scalp prickled. I inherited this place, I said, because the silence pressed me to fill it. I was told to collect the keys. The silhouette leaned closer. The air around it grew colder, the kind of cold that turns breath to glass. Keys don't open what you own here, it murmured. Schedules do. On the far wall, a brass panel I hadn't noticed ticked to life. Numbers flipped with a soft clatter, forming a single line of text. Departure, 3:17, 1 passenger. The bell tolled again. A tremor ran through the floor, subtle but undeniable, the suggestion of mass shifting on hidden rails. Where does it go? I asked. The figure's mouth twitched in something like pity. Where you were meant to be going all along. I should have run. Instead, I took one step inside. The door sighed behind me, but didn't close. The cold intensified, my breath fogged. On the seat nearest the aisle lay a paper rectangle, another ticket, edges crisp, the ink shining wet. It bore my name in perfect letters, and beneath it, a destination I struggled to pronounce. The more I tried to read it, the more the letters rearranged themselves into a word I knew too well, home. My throat tightened. I didn't request this, I whispered. Few do, the figure said. Most only realize they've been traveling once they arrive. From the window, something tapped. Once. Twice. A patient, knuckle-on-glass sound from the platform outside. I turned my light. And saw my reflection staring back at me in the window. But it wasn't doing what I was doing. In the glass, I raised a ticket to my lips and pressed a kiss to it, then smiled with a mouth full of ash as the carriage doors slammed shut. I pressed my palm to the window, desperate to steady my breath. The reflection staring back at me wasn't delayed or blurred, it was alive, independent. It smiled with a calm I didn't feel, ticket raised between its fingers like a lover's keepsake. My own hand, trembling, hung empty by my side. The carriage trembled as if something enormous shifted along hidden tracks. The shadow conductor stood in the aisle, silent now, its blurred edges leaking smoke into the stale air. I wanted to scream, but the walls felt too close, muffling everything inside me. Why me? I whispered. Why this place? The reflection in the glass pressed its face closer. The ash-mouthed smile widened. Then it mouthed something I couldn't hear, 2 words. My name. The train lurched. A deep metallic groan rippled through the platform like a chained beast straining to move. The lights overhead flickered, exposing glimpses of passengers that hadn't been their seconds before. They sat scattered across the seats, men in old suits, women with feathered hats, children clutching toys too clean for their age. None moved. None breathed. Their eyes were hidden beneath veils of shadow. I stumbled backward, shoulder hitting the brass pole. The conductor's head swiveled without moving its body. Its hollow outline tilted as though listening to something beyond me. Then, in a voice that scraped like steel, it said, "All aboard." The doors clanged shut. I rushed down the aisle, panic driving me toward the rear. My flashlight beam cut across the passengers. Every single head turned as I passed, their shadowed faces following me. The silence was unbearable, pressing against my ears until I heard nothing but the thundering of my heart. The train jolted forward. Not fast, not yet, but the unmistakable roll of wheels grinding against rails echoed in the cavern. How could there be tracks buried here, beneath a forest with no map? At the rear, another door appeared, brass handle gleaming as if polished minutes ago. I yanked it open, half expecting more darkness. Instead, I stepped into another carriage. This one was different. Newer. Plastic seats instead of leather, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Crumpled soda cans littered the floor, old advertisements for brands that hadn't existed in decades plastered crookedly on the walls. Yet the atmosphere was no less suffocating. A man sat alone in the far corner. He wasn't shadow, not exactly. His features were real, solid, eyes, skin, a jaw rough with stubble. But he didn't blink. His gaze locked on me the second I entered. "You made it," he said, voice low, steady, too rehearsed. I froze. "Who are you?" "The same as you." His lips curled into a tired half-smile. "Someone who thought inheritance was a gift." I edged closer, each step echoing unnaturally loud. What do you mean? He didn't answer right away. He just leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped like he was waiting for the right signal. Finally, he said, "It doesn't matter what deed they gave you. This station doesn't belong to the living. It belongs to those who missed their train, or boarded the wrong one." My throat went dry. And the ticket with my name? His smile widened, and this time it didn't look tired at all. It looked hungry. "That's not your first ticket," he whispered. "It's your last." The train shuddered again, speed building. Through the rattling windows, the black of the cavern stretched endlessly. But in the distance, faint points of light flickered, like lanterns swinging in a tunnel with no end. The man leaned closer, and his voice dropped to a rasp that burrowed into my ear, "Don't look at the lights. That's how they know you're new." I wanted to ask who they were, but the man's warning tightened around my chest like a noose. My instincts screamed louder than curiosity for once, "Don't look." So I kept my eyes low, fixed on the grime-stained floor, even as the lights beyond the windows grew brighter, closer, beckoning like fireflies in an endless night. The train rocked harder, a steady acceleration that seemed impossible underground. The fluorescent bulbs overhead buzzed, then dimmed, leaving us in a bruised half-light. I felt the man watching me, measuring whether I'd obeyed his warning. "Good," he finally said. "You learn fast." I swallowed. "What happens if I look?" His gaze flicked toward the rattling windows, then back to me. His face hardened. "You see something looking back. And if you acknowledge it, they climb aboard." The air seemed to thin around me, every breath like a gulp through cloth. I clenched the brass pole near my seat until my knuckles burned white. "Why me?" I whispered. "Why this inheritance?" The man gave a bitter laugh. "That's the trick. No one inherits this place. It chooses. The deed, the letter, the lawyer, it's all theater. Once you hold the keys, the station already has you." A chill spidered across my arms. "So there's no way out?" His eyes narrowed. "Maybe one. But it's not free." Before I could demand more, the train lurched violently, nearly throwing me against the window. A low horn groaned through the tunnel, mournful and deep, vibrating in my bones. The passengers in the other car shifted in unison, their heads turning toward the sound as if pulled by a single string. Then the lights outside surged, flooding the carriage with an eerie white glow. Against the man's warning, my head turned on instinct. I saw them. Dozens of faces pressed against the glass, as if the tunnel itself was alive with watchers. Their skin looked pale, stretched too thin, mouths open in silent howls. Their eyes, if they could be called that, were hollow pits, black as tar, yet glowing faintly at the edges like embers struggling to reignite. One face stood out. My mother's. My heart stopped. She'd been gone 5 years, taken by a heart attack in her sleep. And yet there she was, cheek flattened against the glass, lips mouthing words I couldn't hear. My knees buckled, tears blurring the impossible sight. "Don't you dare answer," the man hissed. His hand clamped on my shoulder, nails digging deep. "That's not her. It never is." I couldn't breathe. The face outside mimicked my mother's lullaby smile, the one she'd given me when I was small and sick and she sat awake through the night. But her teeth, God, her teeth were wrong, too long, too sharp. The glow faded. The watchers slipped back into the dark. The tunnel swallowed them whole, leaving only the faint vibration of their hunger in the walls. The man released my shoulder. "You're marked now," he said quietly. "They know you can see." I wiped at my eyes, my hand trembling. "What do they want?" He leaned closer, voice a razor whisper. "They want you to get off at the wrong stop." The horn groaned again, and with it, the train began to slow. Up ahead, a platform bloomed into view, one that wasn't listed on any schedule, its sign flickering with letters rearranging themselves until they spelled a single word, "Welcome." The train screeched as it slowed, metal grinding against metal in a cry that set my teeth on edge. My heart pounded so violently it felt like the walls of the carriage could hear it. Outside the rattling windows, the platform emerged from the dark, pale tiles glowing faintly as if lit from beneath. The sign above flickered, letters rearranging, twisting like worms until they aligned into one word. Welcome. The man across from me stiffened. Don't move, he whispered. Whatever happens, don't stand up. The horn groaned, echoing through the endless cavern, and the train shuddered to a stop. The doors hissed open, exhaling a gust of air that carried the scent of soil and rot, like an open grave. I tried not to gag. From the platform, shapes began to rise. Not passengers. Not living. They climbed up as if peeled from the tiled floor itself, crawling upright into pale forms that wavered between shadow and flesh. Their faces were unfinished, eyes too far apart, mouths stretched wide, some features still melting into place. One by one, they boarded. The other passengers didn't react. The veiled figures in the first carriage remained still, heads bowed, as if the arrival of these things was routine. But I couldn't tear my eyes away as one of the newcomers staggered into my carriage. It tilted its head, sniffing the air, and its half-made mouth twitched into something like a grin. The man across from me reached into his coat. He pulled out a stub of paper, old, creased, blackened at the edges. A ticket. He held it to his chest like a shield. The creature froze, its unfinished head cocking sideways. After a moment, it drifted past him, uninterested. Then it turned to me. My stomach dropped. My hands scrambled over my jacket, my pockets, searching for anything. But my ticket, the one with my name, wasn't here. I'd left it on the seat in the first carriage. The man's eyes blazed. Don't breathe. The creature leaned closer. I felt its cold pass through me, freezing my ribs, filling my lungs with winter. Its mouth hovered inches from my face, and though no breath came, I swore I heard a voice inside my skull, "You're not supposed to be here." My vision blurred. The urge to gasp was unbearable. I clenched my teeth until pain shot through my jaw. The creature twitched, confused, tilting its head again. Then the horn wailed. The sound was deafening, shaking dust from the ceiling. The creatures hissed, their forms unraveling in the blast. One by one, they recoiled, retreating through the doors, collapsing back into the glowing platform tiles. The last one lingered, its unfinished mouth stretching into something like disappointment. Then it too was gone. The doors slammed shut. The train jolted forward again, faster this time, tearing away from the platform until welcome vanished into the black. I collapsed into the seat, gasping, clutching my chest like I'd just been strangled. The man studied me. "You need your ticket," he said. "Without it, next time they won't just test you. They'll claim you." I swallowed hard, throat raw. "Where is it?" His expression darkened. "Where it always ends up, where you least want to go back." The train rattled, plunging deeper into the dark, the lights above flickering as though something massive stirred in the tunnels ahead. The brass panel on the wall clattered to life again, flipping new letters into place. Next stop, home. The brass panel's letters clicked and clattered until they steadied into one word, home. The sound echoed through the carriage, louder than it should have been, as if the station itself wanted me to hear it. I gripped the poles so tightly my hand ached. "That can't mean my home," I muttered, half to the man across from me, half to myself. His face remained unreadable. "It never means what you think. But it always means what you fear." The train roared into the dark, the tunnels narrowing until the windows seemed to scrape against dripping stone walls. Sparks hissed in the distance, fleeting bursts of blue-white light that lit the passengers' veiled faces in sharp relief. Not one of them moved. They were mannequins in mourning clothes, statues of grief frozen mid-journey. Then, the car lights dimmed again, leaving only the pulse of red emergency bulbs. The air felt heavier, pressing down on me like a suffocating blanket. My ears popped, as though the train dove deeper beneath the earth. That's when I heard it, singing. At first, just a faint hum, barely audible under the grind of wheels. A lullaby, simple and familiar, threading through the air like smoke. My chest tightened. It was my mother's voice. The same song she used to hum when storms rattled the windows of my childhood bedroom. I clamped my hands over my ears, shaking my head. No. That wasn't her. That thing wasn't her. The man leaned forward, his shadow stretching long across the floor. That's how they hook you. They were the voices you miss most. If you listen too long, you'll follow. The singing swelled, pushing through my palms, reverberating inside my skull. I shut my eyes, but the sound wasn't coming from the platform anymore, it was inside the carriage. Slowly, I opened them. At the far end of the car, a figure stood in the aisle. My heart plummeted. It looked like my mother, exactly as I remembered her, hair tied back, cardigan buttoned wrong at the top, the faint smile she wore when she thought no one was watching. "Sit still," the man hissed. His voice trembled for the first time. "It isn't her. Don't answer." But the figure walked closer, humming softly, each step deliberate. Her eyes locked on mine, warm and sorrowful. "You don't belong here," she whispered, her voice achingly real. I felt my throat strain with the need to answer, to call her name. Tears blurred my vision. The man shot to his feet, blocking her path. "Back to your seat," he growled, ticket pressed hard to his chest. "This one isn't claimed yet." The figure stopped. Her smile twisted, too wide, too sharp, and her eyes sank into pits of black. The lullaby warped into a screech, a chorus of broken voices layered into one. Then she melted into smoke, vanishing like breath on a mirror. The man collapsed back into his seat, sweat streaking his face. "They'll keep trying," he said hoarsely. "Every mile we go, they'll know you better." The panel above us clattered again. Sparks rained from its edges as new letters flipped into place. Approaching, home. The tunnel lights ahead flared, revealing an iron gate stretching across the tracks. Beyond it, a platform loomed in the distance. And this time, I recognized it. It was my childhood station, the one torn down years ago. On the platform, I saw my younger self waiting, small, fragile, and holding a ticket with my name on it. The sight of my younger self on the platform hollowed me out in one breath. He couldn't have been more than 8 years old, pale in the glow of the platform lights, his small shoes scuffing the tiles I remembered too well. I knew this place, it was the station where my mother once held my hand, waiting for trains that no longer ran, the one demolished years ago after the tracks were torn out. And yet, here it was, alive again, and waiting for me. The boy looked up, his face mine but softer, untouched by years. In his hand, he clutched a ticket. My name gleamed across it in wet ink. When his lips parted, I felt ice crawl down my spine. "Come home," he whispered, though the glass between us should have muted him. His voice was perfectly clear, as though it bypassed the air and pierced straight into my skull. The train slowed, brakes squealing, wheels grinding sparks against hidden rails. The horn moaned low, like something mourning. The man beside me cursed under his breath. "Don't you dare step off." I turned, my body trembling. "That's me." "No," his eyes burned with urgency. "That's bait. It knows you. It remembers you better than you do yourself." But the boy smiled, and the smile was mine. A memory flickered, me at that age, standing on the very platform where my father had once left, never to return. My mother had cried quietly beside me, whispering the same lullaby I'd just heard. The boy raised the ticket, holding it to the glass as the train screeched closer. Across its surface, the letters shifted. First my name. Then a new word, boarding. I stood without realizing. The compulsion was unbearable. My legs moved toward the door as if pulled by invisible strings. The man shot up, blocking me. His hand slammed against my chest, ticket pressed between us. You step off that train, and you'll never come back. But it's me, I rasped. His grip tightened. That's not you. That's the station's memory of you. And memories here don't stay memories. They devour. The horn blasted again, rattling my teeth. The doors hissed, unlocking with a metallic sigh. The boy on the platform stepped closer, reaching out his hand. His eyes were wide, pleading, too human to be ignored. Come with me, he begged. You don't belong in there. You belong here. I staggered, torn between two hungers, the need to run into that past, and the need to survive. The man's face twisted with fury. If you go, you'll never leave. Choose now. The boy slammed his palm against the glass. His mouth opened wide, impossibly wide, splitting from ear to ear. Rows of jagged, endless teeth filled the void where my childhood face had been. The ticket in his hand ignited, flames licking upward without burning him. The platform lights flickered, and shadows clawed at the tiles. The man shoved me back just as the doors opened. The boy's scream cut through the roar of the train, high and endless, like steel tearing itself apart. The doors closed before I could lunge. The train surged forward, dragging me away from the platform, from my younger self's monstrous grin. I collapsed against the seat, shaking, heart pounding so violently I thought it would break my ribs. The man lowered his hand, his ticket smoldering faintly at the edges. His eyes locked on mine. Now you see. This place doesn't want heirs. It wants replacements. The panel above rattled again, and new words snapped into place with a metallic clatter. Next stop, the terminus. The panel above us rattled so hard I thought it might shake loose, sparks spitting from its edges. The terminus blinked across the brass tiles, every letter seared into my skull as if branded there. The word pulsed with finality, like a sentence already passed. The man's knuckles whitened as he clutched his ticket. His lips moved soundlessly, some private prayer or curse. Finally, he said aloud, if we reach the terminus, there's no coming back. I gripped the pole beside me. What is it? His eyes flicked to the windows, then back. The last platform. The place where all of this empties. The ones without tickets are fed to it. The ones with tickets, he trailed off, throat working as if the words themselves were dangerous. Become part of the line. The train roared faster, lights outside the windows streaking into smears of white and black. My stomach turned. I couldn't tell if we were still underground or sliding through some space that bent away from the world I knew. I thought of the boy, the memory that had worn my face. His voice still clung to me, begging me to come home. The longer I sat here, the more I wondered if he hadn't been lying. You said there's a way out, I muttered. The man's stare cut into me. There is. But you won't like it. Before I could press him, the lights flickered, then died completely. Darkness swallowed the carriage, so total I couldn't see my own hand. My chest seized. Somewhere in that void, passengers stirred. Not the sound of breathing, no. A collective rustle, like shrouds sliding across wood. Then a voice spoke, deep and metallic, rattling the windows, prepare to disembark. The train jolted. The horn screamed long and low, vibrating through my bones. I groped for my flashlight, fingers trembling as I clicked it on. Its beam stabbed the darkness, and landed on something that shouldn't have been there. A door. Not part of the carriage. Not brass or steel. It was wooden, warped, wedged into the aisle like someone had built it into the train itself. Its paint peeled in long strips, hinges rusted. And across it, carved deep into the surface, was a word I couldn't mistake, exit. The man's eyes widened. Don't trust it. The door shivered, as if something behind it wanted out. My flashlight shook in my grip. Is this the way? It's a way, he snapped. The line will show you doors when it wants to rid itself of you. But every exit takes a price. I stared at the wood. My heart thumped so loud it drowned out the grinding wheels. What kind of price? He leaned closer, his whisper cold against my ear. Something you don't get back. Ever. The handle of the door rattled, turning on its own. A pale hand, small, childlike, slid through the crack, fingers curling toward me. From beyond the wooden door came a familiar voice, soft and trembling, "Please, it's cold out here. Let me in." The voice cracked through me like a lightning strike. "Please, it's cold out here. Let me in." It was my sister's voice. Not as it had been in her final days, frail and fading, but the way she sounded when we were young, when she would knock on my bedroom door after nightmares, begging to sleep on the floor beside my bed. My knees buckled. My throat worked, trying to form words, but the man snapped his fingers in front of my face. "Don't answer it. Not even a whisper." The wooden door groaned as if offended. The pale childlike hand curled further inside, nails scraping against the metal floor of the carriage. My flashlight beam quivered across its skin. No warmth. No veins. Just white as wax. The train shuddered again, the horns moaned stretching longer, pulling us closer to the terminus. The panel above clattered, its letters blurring as if even the word was straining to contain itself. "I can't," I stammered. "That's her voice. That's my sister." The man's face twisted with fury. "That's what it wants you to think. This place learns you. It digs through your memory, your grief, your guilt, until it finds what hurts most. That's the mask it wears." But the voice came again, softer now, breaking with tears. "Why won't you help me? Don't you love me anymore?" The words speared through my chest. My flashlight slipped, beam rolling wildly across the seats and veiled passengers. Every single one of them had turned their heads toward the wooden door. I realized, with dawning horror, that they were listening too, waiting to see if I'd answer. The man shoved his ticket against my chest, his eyes burning. "Listen to me. The station only knows what you give it. Don't give it your voice. Don't give it your grief." The door rattled violently now, the frame cracking as though something massive pressed against it. Splinters rained to the floor. My sister's voice deepened, warped, overlapping itself with layers of sound. "Open. Open. Open." I clutched my ears, sinking to my knees. The train rocked harder, screaming through the tunnel. Sparks exploded from the panel above, letters snapping madly between the terminus and something unreadable, broken fragments of language I couldn't comprehend. And then, silence. The door stopped shaking. The hand withdrew. For a heartbeat, I thought it was over. Until the whisper returned, right beside my ear. "You already let me in." I jerked back, swinging the flashlight wildly. Nothing. Just rows of silent passengers, their shadowed faces tilted at angles that made my stomach churn. The man's expression froze, his grip tightening on his ticket. "What?" I rasped. He didn't answer. He only stared at me with horror. The horn wailed again, louder than before, a dirge that rattled the windows and split the dark ahead. The train slowed, brakes shrieking, sparks flying like falling stars outside the glass. The panel clattered one last time. The letters settled, glowing faintly through the smoke and dust. Arriving, the terminus. The carriage doors hissed open, and through the smoke, I saw a platform lined with mirrors, each one reflecting not me, but something I had already become. The hiss of the doors was like a serpent's breath, sharp and endless. Cold air poured in, tinged with rust and the faint sweetness of decay. My flashlight beam struggled against the fog, but what it revealed clawed at the edges of my sanity. Mirrors. Dozens of them, lining the platform wall to wall. Tall, cracked, each one framed in corroded brass. But they didn't reflect me. They reflected versions of me that could never exist, versions already claimed. In one mirror, I saw myself seated in the carriage, but lifeless, eyes sunk deep, skin gray. In another, I wore the conductor's blurred face, hat shadowing features smudged into smoke. In another, I wasn't there at all, just the empty seat where I should have been. The man behind me cursed under his breath. Don't look too long. That's how it chooses which version to keep. The horn groaned overhead, rattling the mirrors until cracks spiderwebbed across their glassy skins. My reflection splintered into hundreds of fragments, each moving slightly out of sync. One smiled while I didn't. Another raised a ticket to its lips. Another pressed its palms flat against the inside of the glass, desperate to break free. I stumbled back, bile rising in my throat. What is this place? The terminus, the man said grimly. Every journey ends here. And every passenger leaves behind something that never belonged to them in the first place. The platform trembled as if something massive shifted beneath it. The mirrors vibrated, shedding slivers of glass that rang like bells on the tiles. From the farthest end of the platform, a figure appeared. It was tall, wrapped in a conductor's coat darker than coal, its face hidden beneath a cap pulled low. But where its eyes should have been, light bled through, white, unblinking, searing like search lamps. My knees locked. Is that the conductor? The man hissed. His voice broke with something dangerously close to fear. Don't let it call your name. The conductor raised a hand, impossibly long fingers curling into the air. A sound followed, a whistle, shrill and piercing. At once, the mirrors began to ripple like water. My many reflections twisted, contorting into shapes I couldn't hold on to. Then one of them, one reflection, spoke. It pressed its face close to the glass, eyes dark, smile stretching. And in my voice, it whispered, "Come closer." My legs moved before I could think. Some force pulled at me, the same hunger that had lured me toward the boy, toward the wooden door. I felt the magnetic drag of inevitability. My feet scraped across the platform, inching toward the glass. The man grabbed my arm, yanking me back with all his strength. Don't. That's not you anymore. That's the version that takes your place if you give in. The reflection pounded its hands against the mirror, mouth gaping open, rows of jagged teeth blooming where none should be. The glass cracked outward, bulging as though it were ready to burst. The conductor's whistle shrieked again, and this time, the mirror split down the middle. From the fractured glass, my reflection stepped out, solid, breathing, and smiling with my exact face, except its eyes burned white like the conductor's. It stepped free of the glass as if the mirror were water and it had only been waiting beneath the surface. My breath hitched. There it was, me. Every line of my face, every nervous twitch, every scar. But the eyes, those eyes weren't mine. They glowed with the same pale fire as the conductor's lamps, cold and endless, burning away everything human. The doppelganger smiled with my mouth. You look tired, it said, voice perfectly identical to mine. Let me finish the journey for you. I stumbled back, heart hammering. That's not me. The man's hand clamped down on my shoulder. It's close enough. That's how the line works, it shows the world another version of you, so no one misses the one that disappears. The conductor's whistle shrieked again, and more mirrors began to crack. I saw them stepping out, other passengers, reflections of the veiled figures, each shedding their shadowed disguises to reveal faces glowing with that same blinding fire. They spread across the platform, rows of doubles with hollow eyes. My double tilted its head, watching me with a calm I couldn't muster. You don't need to fight anymore. I'll carry your grief. I'll carry your failures. All you have to do is step aside. Its words slithered into my chest, a poisonous comfort. For a heartbeat, I felt the weight of exhaustion, of surrender. Wouldn't it be easier to let this version take the seat, where my skin, and leave me floating behind in silence. The man shoved me, breaking the trance. Don't listen. That's how it claims you, by making you want to give up. My double's smile faltered, twisting into something sharper. Its hands flexed, bones cracking audibly, lengthening into claws. The glow in its eyes flared, washing the platform in pale fire. And then it lunged. I barely dodged, the swipe of its hand slicing the air where my throat had been. Sparks sprayed as its claws raked the metal pole beside me. My back slammed against the cold wall of mirrors, glass humming with the pressure of countless other faces staring out. The man leapt between us, thrusting his blackened ticket forward like a weapon. The double hissed, recoiling, smoke rising from where the paper's edges brushed its skin. For the first time, it looked less certain, more animal. "Run!" the man shouted. I bolted down the platform, shoes slipping on shattered glass. The mirrors beside me erupted with hands, clawing outward, trying to drag me in. Each one belonged to another version of me, some broken, some twisted, all eager to pull me under. My lungs burned as I forced myself forward, ignoring the whispers that trailed after me. Behind me, the double screamed, a sound like metal tearing apart, and the conductor's whistle joined it, long, triumphant, summoning. The platform shook violently. Tiles split. Mirrors toppled. Ahead, through the chaos, I saw something, an archway at the far end of the platform, carved with a single word. My chest seized. Was it another trap? Another false door? Or was this the way out the man had hinted at, the only exit the line allowed? As I sprinted toward the archway, the voice of my double thundered behind me, louder than the whistle, louder than the collapsing station, "You can't leave. You already belong to me." The archway loomed ahead, its letters gouged deep into the stone, "Departure." Each step toward it felt heavier, as though the platform itself resisted me, dragging at my legs with unseen claws. Shattered mirrors fell in waves behind me, glass exploding across the tiles. From each shard, fragments of my face screamed soundlessly, their mouths opening wider than flesh should allow. The man was still at my back, his ragged breaths mixing with the shriek of my double. "Don't stop," he roared. "That's the only way." The whistle bellowed again, and the conductor moved. Its long figure glided across the collapsing platform, lantern eyes burning holes into the dark. My double paced beside it, claws raised, its smile sharpened to a predator's grin. Every step it took, I felt in my bones, as if it were tethered to me. I staggered to the base of the arch. The stone pulsed with heat, humming like a living thing. Up close, I could see faint carvings curling around the word departure, not language, but scratches, dozens of names etched by desperate hands. Among them, my family name leapt out. Fresh. Carved as though it had been waiting for me. The man grabbed my arm, spinning me to face him. His eyes burned with a strange desperation. "Listen. The exit's real, but it takes something from you. If you step through, you'll leave part of yourself behind forever." The ground shook again. My double's laughter rolled across the platform like thunder. "Step through, and I'll be all that's left." I froze, torn between the searing fear of staying and the gnawing dread of what waited beyond the arch. What happens if I don't go? The man's jaw tightened. "Then you become part of the line. You keep riding until you're unrecognizable, just another face behind the glass." The conductor's whistle screamed again, shattering the last standing mirrors. My reflection army spilled free, a tide of me's, each with the same glowing eyes, clawing toward us. The man shoved me. "Choose. Now." I stumbled under the arch. The air thickened immediately, pressing against my chest like water. Behind me, my double lunged. Its claws caught my arm, cold fire searing through my skin. I screamed, jerking forward, the pull of the arch yanking me deeper. For one awful moment, I was caught, half inside, half out. My double's grip tightened, trying to drag me back. I saw its face inches from mine, my own features twisted in fury, eyes blazing with white flame. "You can't outrun yourself," it snarled. The man slammed into it, ticket burning like coal in his fist. Smoke erupted where the paper touched, and my double shrieked, loosening its grip just long enough. I fell through. The world folded inward, sound collapsing, light imploding. My stomach lurched as though I'd been yanked off the tracks of time itself. The last thing I heard before the darkness swallowed me was the conductor's whistle, furious and endless, echoing into a place no map would ever mark. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer on the train. I was standing in a quiet field, and in my pocket, I felt the weight of the iron keys again. But carved into them now was a word that hadn't been there before: return. The field stretched wide and silent, grass bending beneath a wind that didn't touch my skin. A pale sky arched overhead, colorless, almost brittle, like it might shatter if I reached too high. For a moment, I thought I was free, that I had outrun the train, the conductor, even my double. Then I felt the keys. Cold iron pressed against my palm, heavier than before. I pulled them out and froze. Along their shafts, etched deep and glowing faintly, was a single word: return. The letters pulsed with a rhythm that matched my heartbeat. I staggered backward. No, this wasn't escape. The man's voice carried faintly across the field. I spun, and there he was, standing far off, his figure blurred by the wavering air. He looked smaller here, less solid, but his voice was clear. "Every exit takes something. You left a piece of yourself behind to step through. That price doesn't disappear." My chest clenched. "What piece?" He tilted his head. "The part of you that remembers who you were before this journey." The field seemed to ripple at his words. I turned slowly, scanning the horizon. Far in the distance, I saw structures, arches, stations, ruins of platforms half buried in the earth. Each one identical to the train station I had inherited, scattered like bones across a dead land. And then I heard it, the whistle. Faint, carried on the wind. My stomach turned. Even here, the line followed. The man raised his hand, showing me his own ticket. It burned faintly at the edges, smoke curling upward. "You still hold the keys. That means the line will never stop hunting you. It doesn't lose what it marks." I gripped the keys so hard the edges cut into my palm. "Then what do I do?" His eyes locked on mine across the distance. "You make a choice. Either return, or destroy the keys before they carve the last of you away." The ground beneath me rumbled. I looked down and saw faint lines etching themselves into the soil, tracks. Iron rails splitting the grass, humming with power. The whistle grew louder, sharper, echoing inside my skull. And then I saw him. My double. Standing at the far edge of the field. Its glowing eyes locked on me, its smile patient, cruel. It didn't move, but its voice carried all the same. "You can't run forever. Every map ends with me." I stumbled back, clutching the keys. The weight grew unbearable, dragging at my hand, my arm, my very chest. The letters, return, burned hotter, brighter, until I swore they would sear into my skin. The man's figure blurred, fading into smoke. His voice echoed one last time, "Be careful. Destroying the keys means losing your way home. But keeping them means you'll never stop hearing the whistle." The rails beneath me glowed red. The whistle screamed, splitting the sky. Behind me, the field tore open, and the black engine of the train surged through, its doors already open. Inside, I saw rows of passengers, every one of them wearing my face. The engine screamed through the torn field, black smoke pouring from its chimney though no fire burned within. The doors yawned wide, spilling pale light across the grass. Inside, rows of passengers sat in perfect stillness. Every face was mine, dozens of versions, some younger, some older, each staring blankly ahead with white glowing eyes. My knees went weak. The keys in my hand throbbed, iron burning against my skin as though begging me to step forward. The word return pulsed brighter with each whistle. My double stood at the edge of the platform that hadn't existed a moment ago, waiting. Its smile was calm, inevitable. You can't hold the line back. It already has you. All that's left is to decide how long you suffer before accepting it. The air bent around me, heavy with the pull of the station. I staggered, clutching the keys. If I destroy them. The man's voice, faint, carried on the wind, broke in. You'll sever yourself. You'll never find your way back to who you were. You'll live, but you'll never know what parts of you were lost. The ground trembled as rails carved themselves deeper into the earth. The train's horn bellowed, rattling my bones. My doubles inside the car turned their heads in unison, every mouth splitting open into the same grin. I lifted the keys. The iron cut deep into my palm, blood slicking the grooves of return. For one fleeting second, I imagined hurling them into the abyss, ending the connection forever. Freedom. Silence. But then I heard it again. My mother's voice. Soft, broken. Come home. It came from the carriage. From one of the faces pressed against the window. A version of me clutched her hand, smiling with dead, glowing eyes. She was there, inside. Waiting. Or at least something wearing her shape. Tears burned my eyes. My hand shook violently, torn between release and surrender. The double stepped closer, its claws scraping the ground. Destroy them, and you'll never know if she's real. Keep them, and you'll have a chance to find her again. Isn't that what you want? The whistle wailed again, deafening now, splitting the false sky above. Cracks spread across the field, the ground crumbling like shattered glass. The train pushed closer, its bulk pressing against the edges of reality. I screamed, raising the keys high. Every version of me in the carriage leaned forward, their voices joining in a single whisper that cut deeper than the horn, return. The metal burned red-hot, searing my palm, smoke rising from my skin. My chest felt like it would split in two. If I threw them now, I might break the chain forever. If I didn't, I would be pulled back inside, another passenger lost to the endless line. The choice balanced in my hand, freedom that meant forgetting who I was, or captivity that promised the illusion of reunion. The whistle shrieked one final time. I made my choice. As the keys left my hand, whether to shatter or to bind, the field collapsed, the train swallowed me whole, and the last word I heard wasn't my own. It was the conductor's voice, low and final, terminus. The world convulsed as the keys left my hand. Time fractured, the field, the train, the rails all folding inward like paper set on fire. My scream tore from me, lost in the roar of collapsing reality. For one impossible heartbeat, I felt nothing. Then, silence. When my eyes opened, I was standing on a platform. Not the field. Not the endless tunnels. A station. But not one I recognized. The air was heavy with coal smoke, though no train sat on the tracks. Dust drifted like snow through beams of pale light seeping from cracked skylights above. Around me, benches waited, timetables hung crooked, and the clock on the far wall ticked steadily. My chest tightened when I saw the time, 3:17. The keys were gone. My hand, blistered and raw, felt unbearably light. At first, I thought I was alone. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. I turned, and froze. It was me. Not the glowing-eyed double, not the ash-mouthed reflection. Just me. Same clothes, same wounds, same exhaustion carved into my face. He stood across the platform, staring back with the same haunted eyes. "Did you throw them?" he asked, voice low, identical to mine. My throat closed. Yes. His expression broke, into something that looked almost like relief. "Then I don't have to carry them anymore." The clock ticked louder. Shadows lengthened across the tiles, curling unnaturally. The other version of me stepped back, fading into the dark like smoke dispersing. His final whisper lingered, brushing the air like a farewell, "Now it's yours alone." I was alone again. Or so I thought. From the far end of the platform, a whistle sounded. Not shrill this time. Low. Patient. Calling. My blood froze as I turned toward the sound. Out of the tunnel, a train emerged, not black, not glowing, but ordinary. Rusted steel, windows streaked with grime, doors creaking. It pulled to a stop before me, groaning like an old beast nearing death. The doors slid open. Inside, there were no doubles. No veiled passengers. Just empty seats stretching into shadow. My chest ached with an awful understanding. Destroying the keys hadn't freed me, it had transferred the burden. I hadn't escaped the line. I had become it. The station clock ticked down. 3:16. 3:17, the whistle moaned again. Something in me shifted, deeper than bone, deeper than thought. I felt the pull, not to board, but to wait. To stand on this platform until another letter arrived, sealed in wax, passed to some unsuspecting heir. The cycle would begin again, and I would be here to greet them. The truth hit like a blade, I wasn't a passenger anymore. I was the station. The caretaker. The trap. The light flickered, and for the first time, I heard the conductor's voice inside me, no longer outside, no longer commanding, but familiar, my own voice, grown vast and hollow. All aboard. If you followed me this far, you know some inheritances aren't gifts, they're cages. Some maps don't mark what's missing because they were never meant to be found. And if you ever receive a letter, sealed with wax, offering you a place you've never heard of, don't accept. Because once you step onto the platform, the line will know your name. Before you go, make sure to subscribe to the channel. More stories like this are waiting, stories that remind us that sometimes the scariest journeys aren't the ones we take, but the ones that take us.